Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 637 on Tuesday, the 24th of June, 2025. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week you'll hear about a trade agreement that is a real trade agreement. In new car news, you'll get an important message. And in points of interest, you'll find out about an island that sounds like it's inhabited by bamboo-munching mammals. But first, we have a smidgen of a follow-up, and it is last week, when we went to record, we had heard that the US and the UK had signed a trade agreement, but we didn't know whether they had actually signed a trade agreement or whether they had signed an agreement to talk further about a trade agreement, and we're just discussing what they'd discussed previously.
Frankly, I'm not sure many people knew.
No. Turns out they had actually signed a trade agreement which included a tariff of only an extra 10% for the first 100,000 cars that are exported to the US from the UK instead of what was going to be a 25% rate.
Originally, the tariff was only going to be 2.5%, by the way. But that's what it used to be anyway, because global diplomacy and all that kind of thing. And yeah.
Let's not go there because we'll get depressed and angry.
And you'll have to edit out the swearing, and it's just not good.
Well, do you want to take us on to the new news then?
Yes, let's talk about great stuff. Great stuff being that the county of Denbighshire in Wales has said that none of the roads it turned to 20 miles an hour are going to be turned back to 30 mile an hour ones. At least not for the foreseeable future and not right now. Some other counties in Wales have been looking at what was originally included in the sort of blanket 30 to 20 change and have decided that really that's a little bit redundant in lots of places. Well, in some places, and are changing them back. But generally, everybody seems to be sticking to 20. I know that up here in Scotland, then many towns and city centres, it's just changed to 20 when you get into the centres of them. And quite frankly, you wouldn't normally be driving at 30 through them anyway. You'd normally be sitting about 20, so it makes no difference.
Yeah. Well, here in Denbighshire, they did open it up, didn't they, to for comment from the public, from the locals, to find out.
Exactly. Yes. Comment to the public and from locals. And they found out the only people who were complaining about it were people who were passing through, not people who actually lived there. They figured that given that people who lived there weren't complaining, it was probably a net improvement for them.
Yes.
Or at least very much the same. Really, there was no good reason to actually change them, which I think is a pretty... I don't have an issue with that at all.
Yep. I am going to take us on to a story that sounds at first like it's a little bit mad, but when you dig into it, it actually makes a lot of sense. And this is the news that the Motor Ombudsman has ruled that a defective infotainment system in a car must be replaced at the cost of a dealer, not the car manufacturer. Now, they ruled this because it came under the Consumer Rights Act of 2015. Why this has caused a bit of consternation is because the dealer is the person being held, or the organisation being held responsible and the one having to pay the costs instead of the manufacturer. Everyone agreed that the infotainment was defective. That wasn't the argument. It was all about the dealer going, but that's not on us. That shouldn't be on us. However, the contract to buy the car or to lease the car or whatever it was via the dealer. So therefore, you go back to them.
At an almost 6-year-old car, I would hope it was bought. But yes, but the idea is that the agreement is with the person who sold you it, and it's the dealer who sold you it. And then if the dealer needs to get it back from the manufacturer, then that's down to the dealer. That becomes their problem. And they can squabble that one between two companies as much as they want. But for consumers, then you go back to the dealer if it's the dealer who sold you the car. So this all comes under the 10-year life expectancy for vehicle electronics. And this vehicle was 5 years and 9 months old when it failed.
Yeah, that's interesting that they're saying that it's 10 years is the expected lifespan. Because we've got car manufacturers saying, well, actually, it should be 15 years.
Yeah.
Was it Renault or was it Peugeot that was saying we're looking at cars lasting 15 years? And I know there are moves within manufacturers to, let's say, refresh a second-hand car, giving it a fresh interior, and that sort of thing as an alternative, a new way in which to create income as much as anything.
I think that was Peugeot or Citroën.
That they can just happen to spin as, well, no, we're being very green because we're not building a new car, we're just replacing and making it feel like a brand new car, which I like, by the way. I'm just skeptical of the marketing side of things.
I mean, there's plenty of companies cropping up who are doing exactly that. They just don't. Well, no, I'm going to say they just don't tend to be doing it with cheap ones. But I saw pictures that Jim, the well-known Panda man, Jim McGill, had shared at the weekend from the Panda meet he was at in Italy, and then people were retro modding Fiat Pandas and upgrading them and reupholstering them and all these kind of things. What I was going to say was it's just high-end cars. It's actually rubbish. And it seems to be happening across the board, but that's very expensive.
Yeah, because Toyota were looking at it with Corollas, weren't they? I'm sure that was a story we covered.
Possibly. I mean, they are bringing back all sorts of bits for classic models, but they tend to be higher-end classic models or sports cars, so Celicas and Supras and stuff. They're starting to, they are remanufacturing and selling via dealers parts for long discontinued vehicles to keep them on the roads.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
By the way, we presume that the Motor Ombudsman is presuming that the dealer will then get reimbursed by the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Which,
as I say, that's down to the dealer and manufacturer to squabble.
Which must, I'm sure, the manufacturer will be going, yes, here's the cost.
It's easier to just pay it than to fight it, I think. But speaking of parts for new cars, Stellantis has opened a new distribution centre at its factory in Ellesmere Port. It's set to stock some 4 million components every year. It's 60,000 square metres, employs 234 staff across 2 shifts, 5 days a week, and will deliver parts to the 19 regional hubs that Stellantis then has delivering out to dealers. I imagine it's going to stock components for cars aged up to 10 years old, presumably including the infotainment systems. And that's for all Stellantis brands that are present in the UK. So Abarth, Alfa Romeo, Citroën DS, Fiat, Jeep, Maserati, Leapmotor, Peugeot, and Vauxhall.
They make a big thing about how sustainable the building is and everything, which is good. Again, I may sound like I'm being dismissive of that. I'm not. It is a good thing. But it's interesting how much of this article that stuff takes up.
It does. In the Autocar article that's linked, you'll find that probably half of the article is about the rainwater capture facilities, the treating and filtering of wastewater, etc., etc., etc. It's all important. It's all good. We were having a bit of a chat about this before the show and just saying, well, it's there, but not in Luton instead of the factory. And we were working out or listing our reasons why Ellesmere Port made more sense. First of which, as you were pointing out, Andrew, was the fact it has fantastic transport links by water, by train, by road, air if necessary. Are all Liverpool, John Lennon Airport, it's close, all these kind of things.
Manchester's
so it's
close.
A brilliant location. Manchester too. So it's a brilliant location for all of these things. Luton, whilst more central, isn't. And as well as that, it's very much space constrained. We're having a little bit of a think about this, and I'm going off topic, really, of the story. But we're having a bit of a think about this and the whole Luton factory thing. And of course, one of the challenges that it has is that it's already jammed between the town and the airport, the hill that the airport is on, because Luton Airport's on a sort of plateau, and absolutely no room for expansion or anything like that. And probably the land is so much more valuable as retail, hotel, or housing. That will not have been helping Luton very much, whereas at Ellesmere Port, of course, they've dialed back the capacity a little bit so there'll be space on site so that this could be built and if necessary in the future, expanded, I guess.
Yep. I'm going to stick with Stellantis, though, and not good news for software lovers.
Software lovers, for goodness sake.
Their deal with Amazon to create the software that was going to run the smart cockpit system that Stellantis use is now winding down, quoting here from the announcement between Amazon and Stellantis. They agreed this in January 2022 that they were going to do this, and it was supposed to have launched last year, but there is no reason why the partnership has ended, and there's lots of corporate talk about how they're really good chums still, and each are vital to each other. they still love each other dearly, but it's just not going to happen.
Hmm.
When you read through the details of the software, it sounded like they were going very much down the GM line, which was not having any mirroring system. You could only log in to the car's software with your phone. You couldn't put up Apple CarPlay. You couldn't put up Android Auto. and because there was things like Stellantis would have to pay Amazon for every car that used the software, but then Stellantis would get a kickback for everyone who bought into Amazon Music or other subscription services. It's like, oh, what?
No, bought into them through the vehicle.
Yes, sorry, through the vehicle.
That's the line in this Reuters article that gets me. Because obviously that's the most intuitive way to sign up for a new online service is via your car. Not via your phone and then access it from the car or via it's a big purchase, so I'm going to use a computer. But, and do it. But it just doesn't make sense.
That underlines, though, the problem that the car industry has with this whole subscription and making the car this important software hub, is they all seem to have failed to grasp we have a phone that we do all that stuff on. That's where we want to do it. We do not want a third or possibly fourth destination, which is the car, in our lives in which we have to go through this whole thing again.
Yeah, for most normal people, the phone is the hub of most things. The car is never going to be any more than a node from that hub. It's just psychologically, it's not going to happen. Sure, it could technically happen. There's nothing wrong with it from a technical point of view. But from a practical, what are normal people actually going to do, that they're not going to do that.
Which explains why the certain big four that have pushed this dramatically and promised the billions and billions to certain car companies this is going to happen, they've gone, oh, okay, let's do this then, without stopping and being an adult and thinking it through.
Do you remember way back when we started this podcast and we went to BMW?
Yeah.
We went to have BMW driving day down in Farnborough, which was great. But one of the things they were telling us about was purchasing of services from your car, for paying for BMW for music streaming services or all these kind of things.
They were going to partner with Samsung, weren't they? If I remember rightly, for the smart house
I think
stuff.
it was Samsung, yeah. I don't know about anyone else, but that has really dropped off. And I'm curious just how many tens of people might possibly have signed up for those services or continued the payment for it.
BMW hasn't given up on the whole subscription side of things because they keep releasing details like, oh, well, the subscription for the heated seats, etc. And they keep getting massive blowback every single time, yet they still keep bringing it out. People
hate it. It's like, what, you're fitting this stuff, but you're not letting us use it.
Yeah. It feels like you're being conned.
Yeah.
It feels like you're being robbed.
They've done that for years.
They're not the only car manufacturer, by the way.
No, sorry. It's just a very easy example because it's one that we went to and there was a presentation about it. And it was some time ago. There's a whole industry in unlocking stuff in BMWs that's there but not accessible. In fact, for most of the German brands, we do that. Anyway, sorry, we're way off on tangents today. I apologize.
Do you want to take us to Rome then? If we're going to go somewhere, let's go somewhere nice.
I would love to go back to Rome. Rome is very nice, and Fiumicino Airport on the outskirts of Rome is really a relatively pleasant airport as far as airports go. Last time I was there, it was absolutely pelting with rain there. What they're doing is they are setting up a large-scale energy storage facility. Why might you want to do that, says Heathrow. As, it's just a massive emergency backup hub. And what they're doing is they are building a massive 10 megawatt hour storage system, but 2.1 megawatt hours of that is going to be provided by Generation 3 and Generation 4 Nissan Leaf batteries. So ones that have been taken out of Nissan Leafs that have been crashed or whatever, or that may have been the result of a warranty recall, so they've had some glitches in them which can then be fixed. And so they're going to put a whole load of those together, essentially in big containers with cooling systems, and they're going to use that to provide 2.1 megawatt hours of backup storage at Rome. And again, it's showing that whole thing that when people up until a few years ago were talking about, but your EV battery will need change, it's only going to last 6 years, which has been shown to be complete rubbish.
Yep.
It's going to last 6 years and then it's going to be completely useless and you're going to have to pay £20,000 for a new one, isn't actually the case.
And while if there is something catastrophic and it's out of warranty, yes, it will be expensive to replace the whole thing. Equally, if your engine goes out of warranty, that's not exactly cheap to swap in.
And you don't replace it. People repair the cells.
Yep.
They replace the broken cells. You retest it. You've got a newly functioning battery.
Again, the things you learn as this becomes more mainstream and more widely adopted, the things you learn and the things that happen that you didn't realize were going to happen. And this is part of it. I love the idea of this because I feel this is the sort of thing we're going to have to see more and more of, particularly, say, just use the UK as an example. Because we're not upgrading the energy networks like we should have done and should be doing.
It depends where you are in the country, but yeah.
We need the ability to take the pressure off it. And therefore, having these more localized storage facilities is great. But it's also, because we've discussed this previously with charging hubs, is for them to have this sort of facility as well. Because again, if it's a peak time, they can modulate their requirements, which doesn't strain the networks. And
also charge them up when it's cheaper.
Yep. Or connect them into solar, connect them into wind, all these other things that can help.
Last paragraph of this article is, I think, particularly interesting. The article's from evpowered.co.uk, as always, linked in the show notes. But it says, the project is part of wider efforts to find additional uses for EV batteries even after the vehicles have been decommissioned, rather than scrapping or recycling. Most modern batteries are expected to remain suitable for on-road use for more than 20 years. Second life projects such as this then have the potential to reuse them in less intensive applications for years until they cease to be suitable for driving. And if you're going to grumble about they remain suitable for 20 years, there is a link to a study and an article about that study, which gives you more information. So don't scroll with us, follow the links.
Yes, the study is
questionable. Oh, is it that kind of study?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do know they last a good long time. They are 10 plus years, etc., where the drop-off is fractional. It's obviously not the same as an engine, but it is fractional in comparison overall. So I'm not dismissing that they don't last. And as he hurriedly sort of backpedals there, I think we should bring to the end
yourself from that particular hole.
Well, it's just all the caveats you have to put in case you get the adenoidal people commenting, etc. But anyway, enough of that. We've reached the end of part 1, Alan.
Yes, which means it's Guilt Minute, quick breaking show. We ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. As well as that, if you do want to like and subscribe and you want to do something which is a very little effort to you, that's a fantastic support, then you can like, subscribe, ding the bell, whatever else, on YouTube. That actually will make a significant difference to us right at the minute as we home in on that 500 follower target. It's also quite a good place to listen to the podcast as well. The audio version does go up there every week. So if you're an Android user, YouTube Music will let you listen to the podcast.
Yep.
Quite happily and successfully.
Yes.
If you've done all of that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Yep. Thank you, everybody that does. Right, into a new car news. And as Volkswagen appear to have been so delighted we didn't sing Happy Birthday last week, we will once again not be singing Happy Birthday this week, as the Golf GTI Edition 50 is announced ahead of next year's 50th anniversary, which Alan did mention last week. This is going to be a 321 brake horsepower and their most powerful Golf GTI yet. And when you read through the specs in this Autocar article linked in the show notes, it is really quite impressively much more than current and recent GTIs.
But it's by 60 horsepower. I mean, it's pretty serious.
Yeah, it's getting very close to the hyper hatches, like the Type R, which is about to leave anyway, but that sort of thing.
Bye-bye.
Yes, don't cry, Alan, don't cry. Tears of happiness. But yeah, some of the stuff they've put in here, that like they're reworking the chassis and suspension side of things, and they're also dealing with the electromechanical steering, the dynamic chassis control, vehicle dynamics manager, and it's all going to be tuned and turned up a notch or two to make it much more dynamic and driver appealing. If the normal GTI wasn't appealing enough for you, that is. But they've already driven it round the Nürburgring, and it's done it in 7 minutes and 46 seconds, which is pretty quick.
Yeah, that's quicker than the accompanying model, the Golf R 20 years. Happy birthday to you. As well, which kind of accompanies this car. Now, the interesting thing that if you're going, well, if the GTI is so powerful, what's the point of the R? The R will get you an on-paper 7 brake horsepower and 4-wheel drive. That really seems to mostly be the difference between them.
But will the 4-wheel drive negate the 7 horsepower?
I imagine it possibly will, but is the 7 horsepower actually missing from the GTI Edition 50 or not? I think there's many, many variables there, but the R has to remain more powerful than the GTI, certainly on paper.
Are you going to notice, really?
Yeah, I think on the road I would have the R just because of all weather stuff, but I can understand why on the track. I know if you live somewhere dry, you maybe want the 2-wheel drive one instead.
Yep.
Nobody said how many Volkswagen are going to build, but it's understood to be limited run, and prices are expected to start at around £45,000, which actually doesn't seem so bad.
No, not in the current market. I mean, whether we agree with what the current market prices are is a different matter, but it is comparable.
Well, from memory, the GTI TCR, which I drove a few years ago, which was amazing until I saw the price tag of about £45,000. It's not ridiculously above other special edition Golf, so over the last few years anyway.
No. There was an interesting video from Tim Rodey going off topic yet again, but it is connected, talking about car prices and the increases. And he did some comparisons with certain popular models about including inflation amounts, what they should be, what they actually are. And it was interesting seeing who was close and who really wasn't.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to take us on to another special edition short run?
Well, yes, Caterham is going to be retiring its use of the 1.6-litre Ford Sigma engine, and to celebrate, I don't know, to round that out, I think is possibly better. It's going to do a limited edition run called the Caterham 310 Encore. They're going to build 25 of them as a final farewell. It's Caterham, so you're not exactly going to get air conditioning, cruise control, and all of those kinds of things.
Well, you have air conditioning. You
do get a lot of air conditioning, don't you? So you get 152 brake horsepower, 1.6-litre Ford engine, 5-speed manual transmission. You get a lightened flywheel, a widened track, adjustable spring platforms, and adjustable rear anti-roll bar. You'll get 254mm front brakes, 4-piston calipers, powered by the race-spec master cylinder. It will weigh just 540 kilograms. And as a result, we'll put out 286 brake horsepower per tonne for a 0-60 sprint of just 4.9 seconds and reaching 127 miles an hour, which sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, no, yes. Both those sound terrifying, actually.
You get a nose cone from the 620, the cut grille, the carbon fibre front wings, black finish for the windscreen lights, exhaust heat shield, black Apollo alloy wheels, and Toyo R888R tyres, so don't be going out in the wet or the cold.
But you also get colours, don't you?
Best of all, you get an amazing selection of colours. 6 options. There is Blue Monday, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Green Light, Orange Crush, Back in Black, and White Noise. And if you choose Back in Black, you're an incredibly dull person. because these are very good colours.
Yeah, do click the Evo link in the show notes because they've got the pictures of them, and they are the colours are absolutely fabulous. I think the black is good as well, but it is just not as good as the actual colours that you can get rather than the monochrome.
Agreed, because they come with cool graphics too.
Yeah.
We will do debate on the colours here. I think Orange Crush or Green Light.
Yeah, I'm Green Light personally.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road's also pictured in this Evo article, and it's very cool too.
You only need 39,995.
Bargain.
Oh, I wish I had 39,995.
I wish I had 39,995 pounds to put towards a Caterham 7.
Yes,
absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to now take us well away from that, and Toyota have announced that they will be releasing a commercial version of the Land Cruiser. If you need to go off-road and you need to haul a certain amount of stuff or even tow it and you don't want to pick up, here is your option. The prices are going to start from £52,729.17 specifically. You can start ordering from the 1st of August and delivery start in September. I'm guessing, and I haven't had a chance to check, but I'm guessing that price is plus VAT.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't check either, to be honest.
Because that seems quite low otherwise for the rest of the vehicle.
That's low relative to the full passenger version, by the way.
Yes. This is not like the Suzuki Jimny commercial. This would be incredibly tricky to convert back into a normal vehicle, a normal car. However, like I said, if you've got to go off-road, if you need a certain amount of secure space as well, this will fit needs. This one looks perfect with just applying light blue U and N on the side in the pictures in the Mud Life article linked. It does really feel like it is the UN spec.
Yeah, if you wanted to convert this back to a passenger vehicle, there are lots of bits you would need that do not come from UK or possibly even most of Europe spec Land Cruisers, because it has a different floor, because of the different floor and different rear paneling, because it doesn't have things like rear air conditioning, it doesn't have third row seats, it doesn't have electric stuff in the back. So there's loads of things in the luggage compartment and the gear compartment which are not going to work, and not going to be direct swappable with passenger models.
No.
Do be aware of that if you think you're going to be a wee bit cheaty on that kind of stuff, and that's before we even get as far as, right, how do you remove those panels across the windows?
Yes. Anyway, do you want to take us on to, actually, this is a very important message that we are relaying here.
Yeah, last one, a little bit of consumer information. If you have a 2009 to 2019 Citroën C3 or DS3, then please don't drive it until you have checked whether or not it is covered by the recall that Stellantis has put in place around the Takata-built airbags.
This is off the back of a fatality in France recently, where unfortunately a lady was killed because one of the airbags went off unintended. This is also connected to a December 2024 recall for the same thing. However, they have upgraded it to do not drive.
Yeah. They have already, so Stellantis have already replaced just under 70% of the 690,000 affected vehicles. But if Citroën doesn't necessarily have your address, or if there was a gap in the DVLA database, which is not unknown, then you may well have been missed in this. You can search using a VIN on the Citroën UK website in the show notes from Autocar. Then please do that. But until you've checked, don't drive the car, please, because face fireworks.
Yes, if it's not you, yourself with one, but you have neighbours or friends or family, let them know as well.
Yep. Proper spread the word on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, points of interest.
Yee.
Yeah, and we're going to have a lunchtime watch this week. And this is thanks to Jim McGill posting on Blue Sky about this area, this place, this island. And this is about Pantelleria which is between Sicily and Tunisia in the Mediterranean Sea, which actually could, and Fiat probably wants to change the name to Pandelleria, because this is the highest density of panda cars in the world. And there's a film that's just over a fraction over 30 minutes long from Fiat themselves on YouTube, where they go to the island and they meet some of the people who use them. They find out how the island has decided that the Panda is the car for all things, all manner of things, and it is the only car that you need for all manner of things. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful film.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get to see the variety of pandas and the way they're being used. It's brilliant. Love it.
I've owned a Panda. There we go.
Wow.
But not unfortunately, not the greatest for a long motorway drive. Lovely on short roads, short drive, fantastic. I had 100 HP, just to make that clear to people before you go, oh, my, whatever, twin air is fantastic over hundreds of miles. Great. My back wasn't. But no, I loved it. It was a great weekend. Didn't hang around for very long because I was doing lots of long drives at the time. No, this is really cool. Great video, and just interesting and nice.
Mm.
Happy stuff.
Yes.
List of the week this week is 19 interesting French luxury barges from Autocar, although I think the Frenchness of at least one can be called into question. Maybe it had a Renault badge and that was it. Then otherwise, there's a list of 19. So Andrew, which one have you chosen here?
Well, I nearly did go for the non-French French luxury barge, but purely off the back of the picture in the slide. It's slide number 2 for everyone who follows at home, because I want that car in that colour and that spec, everything about that. It won't be useful, but I just think it looks fabulous. However, I have plumped for slide number 8 and the Peugeot 604 from 1975.
Okay, so that was the one I'd chosen too.
Well, great minds think alike, Alan, is how we'll choose to go with this one.
Yes, I would have mine in metallic bronze with this sort of dark orange velour interior and the yellow headlamps.
So exactly what's in the picture then.
And the PRV6 engine as well. So basically what's in the picture, yeah. I could never be as cool looking and suave as the driver, though.
No, of course we can't. We're not actually French.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. And yeah, if it wasn't that and for flavour of the 604, then the coupe and the convert versions are probably the suavest classic. One of the they're classic cars. I was going to say classic French cars, but classic cars you could have if you cruise down the Champs-Élysées with the wind in your hair, etc.
Mm-hmm. Do check out and let us know if you agree with us or not. There's some crackers on here. There's a couple of obscure
there are some really
ones
good ones
as well, and it does make it clear that it is talking about some of the hits and misses as well. Mm-hmm. So it's not all good, shall we say?
No,
but they're all interesting at least.
Some stinkers. Some of them are rare, but nobody cares. Category, I would say, and yeah, I'm sure that the French politicians enjoyed being driven in them.
Mm. Right, I am going to take us on to the and finally. And this week we're going to give you a couple of videos to watch, actually. And it's a bit of an old one. It's from over a year ago on Top Gear. And it's about Porsche's secret stash of vehicles. Now, we've done sort of similar stuff recently before on the and finallys. Now, these are 2 videos of Tom Wookey Ford walking round. And the first one, he's looking at the prototypes and concepts. And the second one, he's looking at all the road-going cars. Obviously, it's amazing just looking at what Porsche do and have hidden away and everything. And like I say, we've had similar articles recently talking about the prototypes and concepts, but here you get to see them in video form as well. Do enjoy. Mm-hmm. Just a few minutes, bit of fun as ever with the and finally. Just something a bit light to round out the show.
Yep, we've got to balance out the news at the start in some way.
Yes, for our own sanity.
Yeah, we like looking for those articles. I think that rounds it up this week, doesn't it?
Yep.
So don't forget, folks, between now and next week, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts to the show at motoringpodcast.com on Blue Sky, at Motoring Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and on the contact page of www.motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Blue Sky, or if you prefer LinkedIn, I am there as well under my full name. And Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you personally, what's the best way for them to do that?
Blue Sky is best for me, really, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY.bsky.social. As I said, we'll be back very soon. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.